Arya stood by the window of her small apartment, staring at the city lights flickering in the distance. The sky was dark, but the stars above seemed unreachable. She had always loved looking at them, imagining new worlds waiting to be explored. But tonight the stars made her feel small, empty. It had been years since she had tried to start a family. Every attempt ended in disappointment. The doctors had been clear. Her body could not carry a child. The words had hit her like a storm. She had always dreamed of motherhood, of holding a tiny hand in hers, of guiding someone through life. But now that dream felt like a closed door. Society did not make it easy. Friends would whisper, colleagues would glance awkwardly, and strangers would ask questions as if it were their right to know. "When are you having children?" they would ask, with smiles that hid judgment. Arya had learned to smile back and nod, but inside she felt hollow. So she threw herself into her work. Arya was one of the brightest minds in the field of bioengineering. She helped design habitats for human colonies on planets far from Earth. Her work allowed humanity to spread its reach across the galaxy. She had saved lives, improved countless communities, and created technology that no one else could imagine. Yet her achievements felt invisible compared to her inability to have a child. At the lab, Arya immersed herself in equations, blueprints, and simulations. Her team respected her brilliance, though some pitied her in quiet ways. She noticed the sideways glances when conversations turned to family life. Arya would shake it off. She told herself she didn't need anyone's approval. But late at night, when the building emptied and the lab lights dimmed, loneliness crept in like a shadow she could not shake. One evening, while reviewing the designs for the new terraforming project, Arya felt a twinge of excitement. The mission was ambitious, transforming a distant planet, Aurelia, into a livable home for humanity. It was dangerous, complex, and groundbreaking, and she would lead it. She knew the work could fill the void inside her. She just didn't realize how much it would also change her heart. The next morning, Arya entered the lab, her mind buzzing with calculations and possibilities. She barely noticed when her colleagues greeted her. They were used to her quiet focus. She poured herself into the project, drawing new layouts, testing atmospheric models, and analyzing soil samples sent from the planet's surface. Then, the announcement came. A new engineer was being assigned to the Aurelia project. His name was Kieran. Arya read his file quickly. Kieran was not only skilled but known for his creativity and problem-solving under pressure. He had worked on several off-world colonies and had a reputation for thinking in ways no one else could. What caught her attention most, though, were the personal notes. He was kind, patient, and respected the people he worked with. When he arrived at the lab, Arya felt a strange flutter in her chest. Kieran was tall, with a calm presence that made people feel at ease. His smile was easy, warm, without judgment. Unlike others, he didn't ask personal questions. He didn't care that she was single or infertile. He seemed interested only in her mind and ideas. "Arya," he said, extending his hand, "I've read your reports. I'm excited to work with you." She shook it, trying not to let her nerves show. "Welcome, Kieran. I think this project will challenge us both." He smiled. "I hope so. I like a good challenge." Days turned into weeks. Arya and Kieran worked long hours together, reviewing designs, running simulations, and troubleshooting unexpected problems. Every now and then, Kieran would make a joke, a light comment that made her laugh, something she hadn't done in a long time. She realized that she was beginning to look forward to his presence. Not in a romantic way, at least she told herself, but simply in the way people look forward to a comforting routine. One late night, Arya was alone in the lab, analyzing the latest environmental data from Aurelia. The planet's atmosphere was thin and unstable. Without proper adjustments, the habitats would not survive the first settlers. She rubbed her temples, frustrated. "I thought I told you I'd take care of this," a voice said. Arya jumped. Kieran was leaning against the doorway, holding a cup of coffee. "I didn't mean to startle you," he said, stepping closer. "It's fine," she replied. Her voice was quieter than she intended. She hated how easily she could be rattled around people, though Kieran didn't seem like the kind to rattle anyone. He walked over and set the coffee on her desk. "You've been working nonstop, let me take a look. 2 minds are better than 1. She hesitated, then nodded. Together they pored over the data. Kieran suggested small changes, subtle adjustments that improved her calculations. For the first time, Arya felt that this project, this challenge, was not hers alone. Someone else believed in her work and her abilities, not because of her position or accolades, but because he saw the value in her mind. That night, Arya walked home under the starlit sky. Her apartment felt smaller than ever, but her thoughts were alive with possibilities. Maybe, just maybe, the void inside her could be filled in ways she had never considered. Maybe family didn't have to mean only children. Maybe it could mean partnership, trust, and shared dreams. The next few weeks were a blur of progress. The Aurelia project was taking shape faster than anyone anticipated. Arya and Kieran's collaboration became seamless. They communicated without words sometimes, understanding each other's thoughts and methods. And yet, Arya kept a small part of herself guarded, the part that feared hope, that feared disappointment. One afternoon, while testing a prototype habitat module, disaster struck. A power surge caused the simulation to collapse, threatening. Weeks of work. Panic surged in the lab. Arya froze, unable to react fast enough. "Arya! Step back!" Kieran shouted, moving quickly to stabilize the system. His calm hands guided hers as they corrected the errors. The crisis passed, but the fear lingered in her chest. "Thanks," she whispered, her voice shaky. "You did fine," he replied. "We did fine, together." That phrase lingered with her. Together. She hadn't felt that word in a long time. The warmth it brought wasn't romantic, yet it stirred something deep inside. A possibility. A connection. A reminder that humans, despite their flaws, fears, and struggles, could create bonds that mattered as much as biology. Weeks turned into months. Arya and Kieran continued their work, discovering solutions that neither could have achieved alone. Slowly, she began to see herself differently, not as someone incomplete, but as someone capable, strong, and deserving of trust and companionship. One evening, after another long day at the lab, Kieran turned to her. "Arya, can I ask you something?" "Of course," she said, curious. "Why do you hide from people? From connections?" She hesitated. Her past, her infertility, her fears, they all rushed to the surface. I've been judged my whole life. People assume my life is less because I can't have children. I guess I don't want to be hurt again." Kieran nodded slowly, his gaze steady and kind. "I don't care about that. I care about who you are now, what you do, how you think, how you make the world better." For the first time, Arya felt a shift inside. Maybe she didn't have to carry the burden alone. Maybe she could create a new kind of family, not defined by biology, but by love, respect, and shared purpose. That night, as she lay in bed, staring at the stars through her small apartment window, she felt a spark of hope. It was fragile, tiny, like a distant light on the horizon. But it was there, and for the first time in years, Arya didn't feel entirely empty. She closed her eyes and whispered to the universe, Maybe, there's still a way for me to belong." The morning sun filtered through the lab windows, casting soft light over the complex network of screens, tools, and models that covered every surface. Arya sipped her coffee, feeling a strange sense of anticipation. Today was different. Today, Kieran would officially join her in the field test simulations for Aurelia. Kieran entered the lab with his usual calm confidence, carrying a small bag of equipment. His smile was easy, friendly, and reassuring. "Ready to take Aurelia for a spin?" he asked, setting down his bag. Arya returned the smile, feeling a flutter in her chest. "Ready. Let's see if we can't make this planet a little more welcoming. They moved to the simulation room, a large space filled with holographic projections of Aurelia's surface. Mountains, rivers, and valleys shimmered in the blue light. Arya manipulated the controls, showing Kieran the plans for the first habitat, colony. "This is impressive," Kieran said, stepping closer to study the projections. "You've thought of everything, from air filtration to solar energy capture. Most people would miss these minor details that could make or break the colony." Arya felt a small surge of pride. "I try. We can't afford mistakes when lives are at stake." Kieran nodded, his gaze meeting hers. "I see that, and that's why I'm glad to be working with you. I've heard about your work, but seeing it's on another level." For the first time, Arya felt recognized for more than her title or position. She felt valued for her mind, her effort, and her heart. It was a rare feeling, one that made the loneliness she had carried for years seem less heavy. As they ran simulations, Kieran suggested improvements that Arya hadn't considered. Together, they balanced technology and environmental factors, adjusting the habitat's design to withstand Aurelia's unpredictable storms. Their ideas intertwined seamlessly, like pieces of a puzzle fitting perfectly. "You know," Kieran said after a long moment of silence, "most people approach this like a job. They're here for the science, the prestige, or the paycheck. But you see the people who will live here. You see them as more than statistics." Arya blinked. She hadn't realized she wanted anyone to notice that. I guess I just care. Someone has to, otherwise all the planning, all the work, it doesn't matter." Kieran smiled softly. "Exactly. And that's why I think you're remarkable. You have the mind of a scientist and the heart of a human." The word struck her in a way that no praise for her intellect ever had. Her chest tightened, and a warmth spread through her, something she hadn't felt in years. Not desire exactly, but hope. Hope that maybe connection was still possible. Days passed, and the bond between Arya and Kieran grew. They worked long hours, often losing track of time, discussing strategies, sharing theories, and occasionally joking about the quirks of the project. Kieran's humor was subtle, never forced, and it brought out a side of Arya she rarely allowed anyone to see. She laughed more than she had in years. One evening, as the sun set behind the lab's tall windows, Kieran leaned against the console, watching Arya adjust the simulation parameters. "You know," he said quietly, "I've never met anyone who could balance logic and empathy like you do." Arya paused, her fingers hovering over the controls. "Most people don't care about empathy when they're focused on results," she admitted. "They see it as a weakness." "Not me," Kieran said firmly. "Empathy is a strength. It's what makes humans humans. You remind me of that." Arya felt a lump in her throat. She wanted to thank him, to tell him that hearing that made her feel seen in a way she had never felt before. But instead, she nodded and focused on the simulation, letting the words sink in quietly. As the weeks continued, Aurelia's habitats began to take shape in the simulations. Arya and Kieran's teamwork was seamless. They complemented each other, her careful planning and foresight balanced by his creativity and quick thinking. Problems that would have taken weeks to solve alone were resolved in hours together. One day, during a particularly intense simulation, an unexpected storm appeared on the planet's surface. The atmospheric readings spiked, and the habitat's systems began to fail in the projection. "Arya, adjust the stabilizers," Kieran shouted, pointing at the holographic console. Arya's hands moved quickly, inputting new commands. The storm raged in the simulation, lightning flashing across the projected sky. Sweat beaded on her forehead, but Kieran's calm presence steadied her. Together they redirected energy, reinforced shields, and finally stabilized the habitat. Breathing heavily, Arya stepped back. "We did it," she said, her voice filled with awe. Kieran smiled, his eyes shining with excitement. "We did it together." The word "together" resonated in Arya's mind. She realized how rare it was for her to feel truly understood and supported. For so long she had faced life's storms alone, believing that nobody could stand beside her. But here was someone who not only stood beside her but matched her step for step. Later, as they walked back to the lab's main area, Kieran spoke again, his tone gentle. "Arya, can I be honest?" "Always," she replied, curious. "You don't have to carry the weight of the world alone. You don't have to be perfect. You don't even have to prove anything to anyone, least of all to yourself." Her heart ached with gratitude. I've spent so long thinking I had to. I didn't realize I was exhausting myself." "Humans are strong," he said, "but even humans need someone to share the load. You've given so much to this project, to everyone you care about. Let me give something back. Let me be here for you." For the first time in years, Arya felt safe enough to hope. Hope that she didn't have to face life alone. Hope that family didn't have to mean only biological children. Hope that bonds built on trust, respect, and shared dreams could be just as meaningful. Over the following weeks, Arya began to notice small changes in herself. She laughed more freely, ate without feeling rushed, and sometimes paused to enjoy the sunrise. Kieran's presence brought a sense of normalcy and warmth she hadn't known she needed. One afternoon, Kieran approached her with a curious look. "Have you ever thought about what family could mean beyond biology?" Arya raised an eyebrow. "I try not to. It's too painful. Humans are creative," he said softly. "We adapt. We find ways to care for one another, to protect each other, to create bonds that matter. You don't have to follow someone else's definition of family. You can build your own." Arya considered his words carefully. It was a radical thought, one that challenged everything she had believed. But slowly it began to feel possible. Maybe she didn't need to carry a child to have a family. Maybe she could create one in different ways, with someone who respected her, with people who needed her, with love that she gave and received in return. The lab became their shared sanctuary. While others treated the project as work, Arya and Kieran infused it with care, laughter, and respect. They celebrated small victories together, a successful simulation, a problem solved, a risk averted. Each moment strengthened their bond, building trust and understanding that neither had expected. One evening, as the sky outside turned deep purple, Kieran looked at Arya with a seriousness she hadn't seen before. "I know we haven't talked about this, but I want you to know something. I admire you, not just your mind, but your courage, your heart. I don't care about your past, your limits, or what you think you can't do. I see who you are, and I want to stand with you." Arya's eyes filled with tears. The words were simple, yet they carried a weight that no one had ever given her before. For the first time, she didn't feel broken or incomplete. She felt seen, appreciated, valued. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. I think I've been waiting to hear that my whole life." Kieran smiled gently. "You don't have to wait anymore." As she left the lab that night, Arya felt a lightness she hadn't known in years. The stars above Aurelia seemed brighter, the world more inviting. Maybe, just maybe, this new chapter in her life would bring more than scientific achievement. Maybe it would bring hope, love, and a sense of belonging she had thought was lost forever. The first shipment of habitat modules arrived on Aurelia after months of preparation. Arya stood on the observation platform, looking at the modules being lowered onto the planet's surface. Dust swirled in the thin, pinkish air, and the horizon stretched endlessly, dotted with jagged mountains and dry plains. It was raw, wild, and beautiful, a new world waiting for humanity. Kieran joined her, carrying 2 cups of steaming tea from the transport pod. He handed one to her with a smile. "Ready to make this planet our home?" Arya laughed softly, the sound carried away by the gentle wind. "I think we're going to need more than coffee to do that." "Then we'll take it one step at a time," Kieran said. "That's how humans always manage, isn't it? One small step at a time." Together, they inspected the first module. The metal gleamed in the weak sunlight, reflecting their tired but determined faces. Arya ran her fingers along the control panels, checking connections and systems. Kieran adjusted cables and calibrated sensors with practiced ease. As the day passed, the team worked tirelessly, assembling the habitat, connecting life support systems, and ensuring everything was airtight. The physical labor was exhausting, but it also brought a strange satisfaction. Each connection, each bolt tightened, meant a small piece of the planet became livable. During a break, Arya and Kieran sat on a nearby rock, sipping water and looking at the expanding colony. "Do you ever think about what life will be like here?" Kieran asked, his eyes tracing the distant mountains. "Every day," Arya admitted. "But it's hard to imagine. I think about who will live here, who will call this place home, and if I'll ever feel like I belong anywhere again." Kieran turned to her, his gaze soft but steady. "Home isn't always a place. Sometimes it's the people you choose to share your life with. Sometimes it's someone who understands you, trusts you, and stands by your side. You're not alone, Arya. Not here. Not anymore." Her chest tightened. The words echoed in her mind, a melody she had almost forgotten. She wanted to believe him, to let herself imagine a future where loneliness wasn't the center of her life. Slowly, she nodded. "I want to believe that." As the team continued their work, small challenges appeared, dust storms that disrupted assembly, energy fluctuations in the modules, and minor injuries from fatigue. But Arya and Kieran faced each problem with patience and cooperation. Kieran's steady hands guided her when systems failed, and her careful planning anticipated issues he hadn't noticed. Together, they became a force greater than the sum of their talents. One evening after a long day, they reviewed the habitat systems in the control room. Holographic screens displayed air quality, temperature, and structural integrity. Everything was stable, but Arya noticed something: a minor misalignment in the oxygen distribution system. "Kieran, look here," she said, pointing to the projection. "If we don't fix this, the far end of the module could have weak oxygen flow during peak hours." He leaned over her shoulder, studying the data. "Good catch, I missed that. Let's reroute the lines before the next batch of settlers arrives." Working side by side, they solved the problem efficiently. Their cooperation had become instinctive, almost unspoken. Each adjustment, each improvement strengthened not only the habitat, but also their bond. Later, as they stepped outside to watch the sunset, Kieran spoke again. "You know, Arya, most people would see this as just work. But I see something more. You're building a home, not just a habitat. And I want to help you do that. Not because it's my job, but because I care." Arya looked at him, a lump forming in her throat. I never thought anyone would care about me for who I am, not for what I can give them biologically." He reached for her hand, gentle and reassuring. "Family isn't always about biology. It's about love, trust, and commitment. You've built a home for the people who will live here. And maybe you can let someone be part of your home too." Her eyes filled with tears. For the first time, she didn't feel weak for crying. She felt hope, warmth, and the possibility of belonging. "I think I want that," she whispered. Days turned into weeks. The colony slowly took shape, and Arya and Kieran grew closer. They shared meals, laughed over small mistakes, and celebrated every milestone. Arya began to realize that family could be built in unexpected ways. Trust, care, and shared dreams could be just as meaningful as a biological connection. One afternoon, while surveying the new habitat, a group of children arrived from a nearby Earth colony. They were part of an educational exchange program, learning about life on other planets. Arya knelt down to greet them, her heart warming at their curiosity and excitement. "Do you live here?" one child asked, eyes wide. "Yes," Arya replied, smiling. "And one day you could live here too if you like. We're building a home for everyone who wants to explore and care for this planet." Kieran joined her, crouching beside the children. "You know," he said, "this planet can teach us a lot. Patience, creativity, cooperation, and most importantly, that family and home can be more than just walls or houses. It's the people inside who make it real." Arya watched the children run and laugh, feeling a strange sense of fulfillment. She had always wanted a family, but now she understood that family could be chosen, built on love and trust rather than biology alone, and for the first time she felt that she could belong, not just to this colony but to something bigger than herself. That night, after everyone had gone to rest, Arya and Kieran sat on the observation platform. Aurelia's twin moons glowed softly in the sky, casting silver light over the landscape. The wind whispered through the habitat modules, carrying the faint scent of alien soil and hope. "Kieran," Arya said, her voice quiet. "I never thought I'd feel at home anywhere again, but here, with you, with the work we're doing, I think I finally understand what home can mean." Kieran reached for her hand, his touch warm and steady. "I'm glad, Arya, and I want to be part of your home, not just here, but in life, in whatever future we build together." Her heart swelled. She realized that she had spent so many years trying to fit into someone else's idea of family, only to discover that the true meaning of home and belonging had been within reach all along, waiting for her to accept it. The days that followed were filled with progress and discovery. The habitat modules connected, energy systems stabilized, and Aurelia slowly became a livable world. Arya and Kieran worked tirelessly, but the work no longer felt like a burden. It was a shared mission, a testament to human ingenuity and perseverance. 1. Evening, as they reviewed the latest structural reports, Kieran looked at Arya with a smile. "You know, the settlers are going to arrive soon, and when they do, this will truly be a home, not just for them, but for anyone who wants to belong." Arya nodded, her eyes shining. "Yes, and I finally feel ready to belong too." For the first time in her life, she didn't feel the weight of her infertility, the loneliness that had haunted her for years, or the judgment of others. She felt strength, purpose, and connection. She had found someone who saw her for who she truly was, and together, they were building more than a colony. They were building a future. Aurelia's moons reflected in her eyes as she looked at Kieran, realizing that family was not a limit, but a choice. And she had chosen. She had chosen trust, love, and partnership. She had chosen to believe that home could be found not in a single act, but in every shared effort, every moment of care, every bond built with intention. That night, as the two sat in comfortable silence, the wind carrying the sounds of the planet to their ears, Arya whispered softly, "Thank you for showing me that I can belong, that I can have a home." Kieran squeezed her hand gently. "You don't need to thank me. We're building it together." And in that quiet moment, on a distant planet with endless possibilities, Arya realized that for the first time in her life, she was not alone. She had hope, purpose, and someone who truly cared. She had the beginnings of a home and a family in the most unexpected place. The stars above Aurelia twinkled, and Arya allowed herself to dream. A future filled with love, connection, and chosen bonds awaited. She had built more than habitats. She had begun to build a life. The colony on Aurelia had grown steadily over the past months. Habitat modules gleamed under the twin moons, wind turbines spun gently on the distant hills, and the first settlers had begun arriving, excited to be part of this new world. Arya and Kieran had poured their hearts into every detail, and for a while it seemed that the planet's challenges were under control. But Aurelia was not a gentle world. One morning, the air alarms blared sharply throughout the colony. Arya rushed to the control room, her heart pounding. The atmospheric sensors had detected a sudden drop in oxygen levels in several modules. Panic surged through the room as the staff scrambled to locate the problem. "Kieran, check the filtration system immediately," Arya shouted, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. Kieran ran to the affected modules, his calm determination anchoring the team. "It's going to be fine," he said, even as he worked furiously. "We've prepared for this, we can fix it." The oxygen drop was worse than expected. Some modules were losing pressure faster than the emergency systems could compensate. Arya felt a cold knot of dread in her stomach. Lives were at stake. She had to think fast. "Reroute the air from the central reserve," she commanded. "Divert it to the northern modules first. I'll stabilize the filtration system from here." Her hands flew over the controls, recalculating flows and balancing pressures. Kieran's voice came over the comms. "I'm on it. It's a tight margin, but we can make it work." Hours passed like minutes as Arya and Kieran coordinated every movement. Settlers huddled in safe zones, trusting the leaders they barely knew. Sweat ran down Arya's face, but she didn't stop. Not when people's lives depended on her. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the oxygen levels stabilized. The alarms quieted, and the team let out a collective sigh of relief. Arya slumped into her chair, exhausted but alive with relief. Kieran appeared beside her, his face streaked with sweat but smiling. "You did it, Arya, we did it." She shook her head, trying to process the whirlwind of emotions. "I couldn't have done it without you. I would have frozen without you guiding me." Kieran placed a hand on her shoulder, firm and reassuring. "You don't have to do anything alone, that's what I'm here for. And that's what humans do, we survive together." The crisis left the team shaken, but it also strengthened their bond. Arya realized that fear could not paralyze her, as long as she had someone she trusted, someone who believed in her abilities. Kieran had shown her that partnership was more than convenience. It was survival, courage, and hope. That evening, as the settlers rested and the colony returned to its rhythm, Arya and Kieran walked to the observation platform. Aurelia's twin, moons hung low in the sky, casting soft silver light over the landscape. "You were amazing today," Kieran said softly, looking at her with admiration. "You never wavered, even when everything seemed lost." Arya shook her head, feeling tears prick her eyes. "I was scared. But having you there, it made all the difference. I realized something today." "What's that?" he asked, tilting his head. "That I don't have to define myself by what I can't do," she said. "Infertility, my loneliness, all of it doesn't have to limit me. I can still create a home, a family, a life worth living, and I can do it with someone. Who cares? Someone who trusts me." Kieran smiled, taking her hand gently. "Arya, that's exactly what I feel. You're not defined by what you lack. You're defined by your courage, your heart, and your mind. And I want to stand by you, no matter what challenges come next." Her chest swelled with emotion. For so long she had felt isolated, incomplete, and unworthy. But in this moment she felt whole. She realized that the bond she shared with Kieran was not just about romance. It was about trust, partnership, and the shared responsibility of building a future. The following days were filled with recovery and reinforcement. Arya and Kieran worked tirelessly to upgrade the colony's systems, ensuring that a similar crisis could never happen again. The settlers began to see them not only as leaders, but as a symbol of hope, a reminder that humans could adapt, survive, and thrive in the harshest conditions. One evening, as Arya reviewed the structural reports, she noticed a minor fluctuation in the energy grid. She frowned, her analytical mind immediately alert. Kieran appeared beside her. "What is it?" he asked. "Just a small inconsistency," she replied. "But if we don't address it, it could escalate. I want to inspect the power distribution nodes personally." "I'll go with you," Kieran said. "We'll handle it together as always." The two ventured out to the nodes, walking under the pale light of Aurelia's moons. The wind was stronger tonight, carrying fine dust that swirled around them. They worked efficiently, checking every connection, adjusting circuits, and reinforcing panels. As they finished the final inspection, Kieran turned to her. "You know, Every time we face a challenge like this, I see more of your strength. You're incredible, Arya, not just for your mind, but for your heart. Arya felt her throat tighten. I'm learning that strength isn't just about surviving, but about trusting others, letting them in, and believing in yourself. He nodded. Exactly. And I want you to know that I believe in you completely. The words were simple, yet they carried a weight that made her chest swell. She realized that Kieran had become her anchor, her partner not only in work, but in life. And for the first time, she felt that she could face anything, as long as they faced it together. The next morning, a team of settlers approached them with questions about the colony's systems. Arya and Kieran guided them patiently, explaining procedures and answering concerns. The settlers' trust in them grew, and Arya felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had found purpose not just in science, but in leadership, mentorship, and connection. Later, as she sat in her quarters reflecting, Arya thought about her past. The years of loneliness, the heartbreak, and the societal pressure had all been part of her journey. But now she understood that life's trials were not meant to break her. They were meant to prepare her. Prepare her for the moments when she would finally belong, when she would have someone to stand beside her, and when she would create a home and family in a broader sense. Kieran entered quietly, carrying 2 cups of tea. He handed one to her and sat beside her. "You're thinking too much," he said with a small smile. "I'm thinking about everything," she admitted. "The colony, the settlers, us, the future. We'll handle it together," he said, squeezing her hand. "One step at a time, just like always. And no matter what happens, I'll be here." Arya leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling the warmth and safety she had longed for. The fear, the doubts, and the loneliness began to fade, replaced by hope, trust, and belonging. Days turned into weeks, and Aurelia's colony stabilized. The settlers thrived, the habitats became safe and efficient, and Arya and Kieran's bond grew stronger with each shared challenge. They laughed, they worked, and they dreamed together. One evening, while watching Aurelia's moons rise over the horizon, Arya whispered softly, "I used to think that not having children meant my life would be empty. But now, I realize that home and family can be so much more. Love, trust, shared purpose, that's what matters. And I've found it." Kieran wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "I'm glad you see it now, and I want to spend the rest of my life helping you build that home, whatever it looks like, for..." The first time, Arya felt free. Free from the past, free from fear, and free to embrace a future she could shape with her own hands, heart, and mind. She had survived, learned, and grown. And she knew that no challenge, no storm, no obstacle could ever take away what they had built together. The stars above Aurelia shone brightly, reflecting in her eyes. And as she looked at Kieran, she understood that home wasn't just a place. Home was a bond, a promise, and a choice, and she had chosen. Aurelia's colony had settled into a rhythm. The twin moons cast silver light across the habitat modules, and the settlers moved with purpose, working, learning, and living in this new world. What had once been a barren, untamed planet was now beginning to feel like home, a place where humanity could thrive. Arya stood on the observation platform overlooking the settlement. The wind carried the faint scent of the alien soil, and the soft hum of energy systems filled the air. She felt a deep sense of pride, not only in what they had built, but in the journey that had brought her here. Kieran approached her, carrying 2 mugs of warm tea. He handed one to her and leaned against the railing beside her. "It's quiet tonight," he said softly, gazing at the moons. "Yes," Arya replied, "and it feels right. Like this is where we're meant to be." He smiled. "We made it together." The word together had come to mean more than collaboration or companionship. It meant trust, love, and shared purpose. It meant facing challenges side by side, building a home not just out of metal and systems, but out of care, respect, and hope. As they sipped their tea, a group of settlers approached, carrying small bundles of equipment and books. The children from Earth had grown comfortable with the new world, exploring every corner of the colony with wide eyes and laughter that echoed across the modules. One child ran up to Arya, holding out a small plant. "We wanted to help make the colony feel more like home," the child said shyly. "So we planted this in the central garden." Arya smiled, kneeling to take the plant. "Thank you. You've made it special already." She looked at Kieran, and he nodded with pride. Together, they had not just created a colony, they had fostered life, curiosity, and belonging. The day passed with joy and productivity. Settlers worked side by side, building gardens, repairing modules, and learning to adapt to Aurelia's unique environment. Arya and Kieran moved among them, guiding, teaching, and celebrating their small victories. Each smile, each word of gratitude, reinforced the meaning of their work. As night fell, Arya and Kieran returned to their quarters. The room was simple but warm, a space they had slowly personalized with small touches. A few pictures of Earth, plants that survived Aurelia's climate, and a table where they shared meals and conversations. Kieran took her hand gently. "Arya, I've been thinking." She looked at him curious. "About what?" "About family," he said softly. "I know this is different from what you imagined when you were younger, but I want us to build a family together, not in the traditional sense, but in every other way that matters. Love, care, trust, a home that we create ourselves. And if you're willing, I want to share that with you." Arya felt tears prick her eyes. The words were simple, yet they carried a weight she had never known. For years she had believed that motherhood was the only path to family, that her life would be incomplete without biological children. But now she saw clearly that family could be chosen, built through bonds of love and commitment, and that she had the power to define it herself. I want that," she whispered. "I want a family with you." Kieran smiled, his eyes bright. "Then it's settled. We'll create our home here, together." The next weeks were filled with preparations. Arya and Kieran worked with the settlers to create a communal space in the center of the colony, a garden, classrooms, and shared living areas. It was more than functional. It was a heart for the community, a symbol of human perseverance and care. Arya took time to mentor some of the younger settlers, teaching them how to work with the habitat systems, cultivate the soil, and adapt to Aurelia's environment. She found joy in their curiosity and enthusiasm, feeling the fulfillment of nurturing life in a way she had longed for but had thought impossible. Kieran, meanwhile, focused on the engineering side, improving energy efficiency, developing safer structures, and ensuring that the colony could grow without risk. Together, they complemented each other, their partnership both professional and deeply personal. One afternoon, while reviewing the garden project, a young girl tugged on Arya's sleeve. "Miss Arya, will you tell us a story about Earth?" Arya smiled, kneeling to meet their eager eyes. "Of course," she said. And as she told stories of forests, oceans, and mountains, she felt a warmth in her heart. These children were part of her chosen family, part of the life she had built with care and intention. Evenings became their special time. Arya and Kieran would watch the moons rise, sharing quiet moments of reflection. They spoke about their dreams, their fears, and their hopes for the colony. Each conversation strengthened the trust and love that had grown between them. One night, as they gazed at the stars, Kieran took her hand. "Arya, I know we can't change the past, but we can create a future, a family, a home, a life full of love and purpose. And I want to do that with you." Arya leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling a profound sense of peace. "I never thought I'd feel this way again," she said softly. "But now I know that home isn't just a place. It's the people you choose to share it with. And I've chosen you." Kieran kissed her forehead gently. "And I've chosen you." Weeks turned into months. The colony flourished. Plants grew, children laughed and learned, and the settlers adapted to their new home. Arya and Kieran's bond deepened with each shared experience. They faced challenges, celebrated successes, and built a life that was rich with connection, purpose, and love. Arya sometimes reflected on her past, on the years of loneliness, the heartbreak, and the societal pressures that had weighed on her. She realized that every struggle had prepared her for this moment, for this life she had chosen. She had learned that strength was not only in surviving, but in trusting, loving, and creating a home with intention. One evening, as the settlers gathered for a celebration of the colony's first successful harvest, Arya and Kieran stood together at the center. Children ran through the garden, adults shared stories and laughter, and the air was filled with warmth and joy. Arya turned to Kieran, her heart full. "Look at this," she said softly. "We did it. We've created more than a colony. We've created a home, a family, and a life full of meaning." Kieran smiled, his eyes shining. "And this is just the beginning. There's so much more ahead. But as long as we face it together, I know we can handle anything." The twin moons rose higher in the sky, casting their soft glow over the thriving settlement. Arya felt a deep sense of belonging, a sense of peace she had never known. She had found love, purpose, and a chosen family, not in the way she had expected, but in the way that truly mattered. That night, as she lay beside Kieran, Arya whispered to the stars, "Above Aurelia, thank you for guiding me here, for showing me that I can have a home, a family, and a life full of love." Kieran held her close, his voice gentle in the quiet of the night. "We'll continue to build it, together, every day, every challenge, every joy. This is our home now." And in that moment, Arya felt a profound truth settle in her heart. Family was not limited by biology, home was not limited by walls, and belonging was not limited by past struggles. It was created through love, trust, and shared purpose. And she had found all of it on Aurelia, with Kieran, with the settlers, and with herself. As the night deepened, Arya closed her eyes, feeling safe, loved, and whole. She had faced her fears, embraced hope, and discovered that life's greatest gift was not what she had lost, but what she had chosen to build.